Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here. Yeah, I know it's been a while, but it's a new year, and now that the CW shows are back, we're gonna take another crack at getting things back on track. I know so that said that that's what we're gonna try and do a couple months ago, but took a extended vacation, Christmas, New Year's, not to mention still trying to kind of come to terms with a death in the family. Well, uh, getting my head in the right place took longer than expected. But nonetheless, here we are. Um, and with Crisis on Infinite Earths concluded, it's definitely time to talk about this a little bit. I gotta say, this was a big fun ride. Certainly there were flaws. I know I wasn't the only one that was disappointed that we never got that big reverse flash payoff that we've all been kind of expecting for literally years. I can live with it though. Just because there's just like so much of this was just that big long treat for the fans, and of course a way to sort of get to the final steps of wrapping up Arrow. And I mean, I don't really know what I can add that a lot of other people haven't said. Just like all the cameos from people from like all the very like so many of the various DC universe things across history, from like the old Birds of Prey TV shows to the '80s Batman movies. I mean, we even got like Burt Ward coming back to canonize this. I mean, they never directly stated that it was Robin, but come on, we all figured it out. Um, God, what else? Oh, and of course, who can forget the absolute jaw dropper of having Ezra Miller from the Justice League movies pop up? Like having the whole thing with Lucifer kind of got leaked on the internet that he had been spotted on set, but this was like a complete surprise. And I know, like the second I heard his voice, I'm like, no, it can't be. Like, oh my god, it is. Um, I will say, Ezra Miller as his version of the Flash really was one of the strong and most fun points of the Justice League movie. Like right there with like Jason Momoa as Aquaman and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I mean, good stuff. And just seeing him interacting with Barry, I mean that is fantastic. Because the movies for like the only real thing that's ever seemed that can really come to my mind as being similar is like that season 1 episode of Agents of Shield where Samuel L. Jackson actually appeared. Only this is like even more insane because it kind of made sense that you'd have him at least little pop up for a few minutes early on to sort of get people drawn in and get the ball rolling on this. But this is something where, I mean, already a lot of people were tuning in. God knows I was one of the many people who was absolutely jazzed for the fact that we were going to get to see Tom Welling and Erica Durance come back and sort of pick up and get to see a little bit more of the Smallville universe one last time. But this, oh God. And I mean, we even get the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie. I mean, they used footage from that movie. We get that little cameo of Stargirl. Just so many things to try and wrap your head around. I mean, of course, they couldn't do everything with all the various properties. Would have been nice if they could have arranged like some sort of a nod to Gotham or to like the 1970s Wonder Woman, or even some of like the more modern movies. Like, can you imagine if like somehow we'd seen like at least even a glimpse of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker or Heath Ledger's, or maybe especially wild about either of those characters, but it's so keep a little something in the bank for the future. That's god awful like '90s Justice League TV pilot. And if you've never heard of this, this is something that like it never even aired. it was just considered so bad. The only way you could see is you found like basically a bootleg tape floating around a comic convention. I'd only ever seen like one or two pictures of it from the internet. But yeah, no. And then, oh yeah, that really crummy Wonder Woman thing with the lady that ended up being Mockingbird on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, nobody wants that canonized either. Or like those old Batman serials from the 40s with live action actors. It would have been awesome if for some reason we could have gotten like the George Reeves Superman from the 1950s canon. That would have been spectacular because they didn't colorize some of those old episodes. So it would have been interesting to have like again that little thing of that being canonized. But again, keep something in the bank for the future. So yeah, just geeking out over all of this insanity. I mean, you could go on about this for hours. But for what it was, it told the story of Crisis in a way that worked well on television. It worked well in the format they had to work with and the budget they had to work with. There were a lot of very cool moments. There were funny moments. And it all really paid off. Oliver got a really great send-off as the Spectre. I absolutely love those conversations in those final episodes with him talking with Kara and Barry and them saying like, we trust you with every fiber of every molecule of our being. Dig being all upset about Oliver, he was my brother and all of that. And it all leads to that, like exactly what we all thought was going to happen with the Earths being merged into one, which is great. I mean, being part of a shared universe is one of the great strengths of both Marvel and DC. I mean, I live in Japan, and I was actually, oddly enough, at a, well, it was called a salon. It was basically a local foreign American guy who speaks pretty good Japanese was giving this presentation talking about sort of the basics of American superheroes, sort of like a rough history. To a mostly Japanese audience, me, a Canadian lady, and two other guys who were oddly enough Mormon missionaries turned up, but everybody else there was Japanese. And it was just sort of a chance for the local people to kind of talk about this and practice some English. I came by because it's like, yeah, this is totally up my alley. Maybe I can meet some other nerdy people. Turns out I had to kind of bail for personal reasons right at the end. I had some really important personal stuff I had to sort out. My toilet was busted. But yeah, and during that conference though, we were sort of talking about like, well, how are Japanese superheroes different than American superheroes? And one of the points that I brought up was, well, shared universes. We don't really have that very much. I mean, there are a few exceptions, like Naruto and Boruto. But again, Boruto is just Naruto's son. It's the story in the same universe, jumped ahead a couple of years, and the main character's son takes over as the new main protagonist. But in Japan, there's really nothing exactly like these shared superhero universes which have originated from the United States. You kind of get some kind of things that sort of like the Shonen Jump series will occasionally do like little, not exactly in continuity things with each other, just kind of for fun. I mean, there's a famous story that was done about 2008. It was basically like the mixing the worlds of One Piece and Dragon Ball Z together. But again, it was just sort of a special one-off story, just kind of for a laugh. I've actually got the comic, the special edition magazine that was in, and it's quite the hoot if you're familiar with those universes. And I'm not even the biggest Dragon Ball Z fan, but it's quite fun. But again, that was just a pure, just let's have some fun kind of thing. It's not anything in terms of actual canon. But I mean, continuity and these expanded universes and all of this are both kind of a strength and a weakness of American comics. Because in all of this stuff together, it gets enormously convoluted. I mean, even for the the long-time, decades-long fans, keeping all of this straight in your head can be quite the challenge. Even with all the information online, sometimes it's just like, oh my god, what is canon anymore? And especially with DC, merciful God. DC is DC is definitely the king of confusing continuity in American comics, and possibly comics in the world. But but also it's sort of like being able to throw all of these characters together and letting them bounce off each other. That's one of the beauties of it. And here we have something that is really, really unique on television, where outside of animation, of course, where we get to see that, and it's great. It's really kind of, I mean, that's what this is why the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so cool, and this is why the CW universe is so cool. So it's easy to get bogged down in continuity and get a headache from trying to keep all of it straight. But man, when these elements spark together, it is great. And here, this was kind of a, like the crossovers we've had in the previous seasons, this is a chance to celebrate all of that, with everything turned up to 11. And, oh man, I mean, again, there are definitely some weaker moments, and I'm not going to really dwell on this. At the end of the day, for something that was been bubbling for years, this really was a rewarding payoff. There were definitely so many little moments that made me smile, and I just, when I was watching the final episode, I was just like, yeah, this is some good stuff. And then they throw that final curveball at you with Gleek and the Super Friends theme, and I'm like, oh, oh man, I totally want the Wonder Twins now. I totally want to see the Wonder Twins. But yeah, I love that. And I'm glad they did that on Legends. The sheer silliness of Legends is kind of its strength, and to me, it's also its weakness. Because there's only a certain amount. I mean, a certain amount of silliness I can tolerate, even from a superhero universe, and Legends really has doubled down on that in recent years. It's just like, no, man, no, this is too silly even for me. But just for that little moment, it was like, yeah, I don't care how silly this is, I love it. So, in fact, in case you haven't noticed, let's do that. Yep, wearing my much-loved Superman Letterman jacket as I do this. Also, it's cold in my apartment. Anyway, it's good to be back, guys. So, welcome to 2020, and until next time, take care and have a good one.